Greg, long time no talk. It's been so long since we last spoke or saw each other in person. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm good. So you walked into my office about 5 minutes ago, maybe 10 minutes ago at this point, and I asked you what we should do a LinkedIn Live on, and you suggested sharing the joys of wireframing. So let let's dig right into it. What do you want to what do you want to cover on this?
Yeah, sure. So, you had said, "Hey, what should I do a LinkedIn live on today?" And I said, "Well, let's do one." I think some people say that this is the best time to create content is at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon when people are really locked in to LinkedIn and other business platforms. So I said, "Yeah, why not?"
I'd
But
like to
yeah,
real quick give a shout out to Sean Hogan, who loves a good wireframing. Thank you for weighing in, Sean. We appreciate the insights there. It's good to know what the audience wants to know, and yeah, it is riveting on a Friday afternoon. So, without further ado, Greg, why don't we kick this into the next gear with this presentation on wireframing with balsamic vinaigrette or with Canva?
yeah. So I put together this presentation in about 4 minutes prior to going live, but I'll try and get all my thoughts out there. So wireframing I feel like, is a pretty important piece of the design process. Except there's a lot of stakeholders that uh, don't know how to wireframe, have not wireframed before. There's different levels to it. You can be really basic, it could get pretty complex. But usually, when you're talking about wireframing or creating like mock-ups, oftentimes people from like the business side of the business, whether that's marketing, sales, customer success, you might be an owner or a founder. You're typically relying on people with design expertise or more technical people to do your design and mock-ups. And so, when we look at that process, I think that really anybody in an organization should know how to create wireframes. They could be useful for mapping out processes, for designing internal applications, for designing external applications, which you might be looking to sell, designing a landing page, a web page, whatever it may be. And so there's a lot of different people that through wireframing could really benefit. And I want to talk about the some of the benefits.
Let's. This is a perfect segue into how
and
can
I,
this
and I
benefit
and
people.
again, I put this together in about 4 minutes, so I'm trying to put all my thoughts together. But what happens down, like, the kind of the real core of this issue is that people from the business or wherever might have ideas about creating something, whether it's an app, a UI, a module, a process, a landing page. Like I said, there's all different things that you might be building. And what often happens is that I would have this idea, and I would go to somebody and say, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Like, I'm looking for these 10 things. I'm looking to, ultimately accomplish this goal, whatever that may be. And doing that in writing is probably, it's better than probably, like, having it documented could be better than explaining it in some cases, but having visual components to go along with it is really the most powerful. And so, the big benefit of being able to wireframe and walking through designing something yourself can really cut down on the amount of time it takes to get to your end product. And so, let's say we were building an application. Let's say it's a mobile application. if I did not know how to wireframe or design something for that mobile app, let's say I'm a customer success rep, I'm working with customers on a daily basis. Customers are telling me, hey, I need to do A, B, and C. Now, what typically happens is that rep goes, okay, product team or developer, I need this product to do A, B, and C. And just in that plain text, that developer then says, okay, well, I'll make it do A, B, and C. But it may not really fit the needs for either that customer success rep or the customer. And so it creates this kind of back and forth. It's
And
also
they're gonna try to solve it like however they kind of envision it versus the way that maybe the customer wants it, or they might just go for it from a like a design or a programming perspective, but not really think about, okay, well, if we add this here, that actually adds 2 steps to every other process kind of thing.
Exactly. And so, what you often find too is that not every organization has a dedicated designer, a UI or a UX designer. And and so what happens is that people, let's say it's like that customer success rep is delivering these requirements directly to a developer. And, not to knock developers, and some of them can be good at it, but most of them really kind of take those key requirements and implement them. And it may not be, it may not be the cleanest looking thing. It may not have the workflow that you had initially anticipated it would. And oftentimes until you visualize that, so if I'm that customer success rep, until I visually put my ideas down, I may not have provided the best kind of summary of what I'm looking for. And so wireframing can really do that. And so that's where I had this example. And this is actually one of the apps that we have built. And one of the products that I really like working with is called Balsamic. It's a really it's an interesting product. Their kind of whole pitch and their value is that it kind of takes the complexities away from wireframing. And so you could see on the left-hand side is the kind of wireframe and the mock-up that I had built in Balsamic. There's no colors. There's really not much complexity to it. Essentially, we had a problem where we have a lot of data for a preventative maintenance item that we wanted to display to our users in kind of a compact, useful way. And so before this design, it was actually about 3 pages. Like you'd have to scroll 3 times over to access this information.
So it just becomes like overwhelming for people.
Exactly. And so this was a tricky page to design because it's data heavy. There's a lot there. So you're trying to accommodate for viewing information, but then also taking action on information or accessing kind of related information. So like you'd see here are attachments or procedure or the part that this is associated with.
So does this let you build it out and then show where these things will take you kind of?
Exactly. And so you can do that in this platform where, each one of these buttons, like at the top, the complete, the reschedule, the view part, you can link this out and actually build what I'll call a storyboard. So you can actually click through the application. But I think the biggest benefit for at least me in going through this exercise was, okay, I know all of the data points that we need to display. I know the functionality that we need. How can we fit it into kind of one compact screen? And so if I were to type out what this needs to look like, it would get lost in translation, right? And so
Well, even if you typed it out what it needs to look like, somebody would still have to figure out how to do this part regardless.
Exactly. And so we went through, before I created this particular design, we went through a bunch of iterations. And so if anybody has gone through this development process, and this is on a prototype app, or it's actually, I'll say it's in a beta app right now. So we were actually developing these different screens, pushing them out to production, testing them. And so it's a process. It's a lot of back and forth. And so after I created this particular mockup, we went back to our team, and the image on the right is what was delivered. Now we've made some tweaks to this, but it came out very similar to obviously the design on the left. If you were to take a close look at it, it contains all of these different pieces of data, contains the functionality, and it brings the look and feel to it that that we really wanted.
Yeah.
And so, in this particular example, we saved a lot of time by doing this wireframing and this design. And it's not something like with the balsamic program, it's not something that I'm worried, me as a I'll say I'm probably more creative than maybe some people, but I'm not worried about the colors or the spacing, the details of it. I'm just kind of laying out these text and blocks and buttons and just kind of keeping it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Got it.
I would say that I had another example as well, which is with another platform. A lot of people are familiar with Canva. But if you wanted to get a little bit more creative and really start looking at images and colors and things like that, I use Canva for a lot of, I'll say more advanced wireframing where, I'm not a web designer or developer. And if I were to kind of try and describe some of these designs to a designer, you would have a lot of back and forth, right? You would have so many iterations. We'll still have iterations on top of this because, the design's going to evolve, but at least you have a good starting point on kind of, what are the fonts that I want? What are the colors that I want? What do I want to say on a page? And for instance, like if you were to look at this features section here, this is an area where, okay, if I'm kind of laying this out myself, I can understand what is the right amount of text to display for like this 6 block section. If I was just doing this in like a Word document, it becomes really hard to visualize that. And that's where you would deliver. If I were to do this without this process, I might deliver something that is a paragraph long. The designer is going to go and try and include that in there because they're going to value that information, that, content. Sure. And you're going to end up with something that, it isn't going to work for you. So
got it. So this is really a way to just like get ahead of a lot of design issues that'll come up and the back and forth that comes up when you're trying to explain this stuff, because it's like you're trying to bridge the gap between the information that needs to be in these systems, how they need to function, how it needs to communicate with each other. But if you can't convey that early on, then you're probably going to spend a lot more time with back and forth and wondering why it doesn't really feel right.
Exactly. And so if you have, oftentimes the developers or your designers are not the experts on your business, your processes, your customers. And so if you take the time to take this in your own hands, learn how to build out some of these different things, you could really save yourself a lot of time, and you could get from kind of concept to product or going live in a much shorter period of time. And obviously, if you're working with, people, maybe you're working with contractors or consultants, you're not just talking about, a salaried employee. You're going to end up paying a lot more money for all the back and forth and all the iterations.
Yeah. So if you spend a couple hours trying to like dial some of this stuff in beforehand, at least even if it doesn't look as good as this stuff, it's like get the main gist of it so that way they can pretty it up and everything. I got it. So you made this presentation in Canva.
Yes.
I'm actually impressed by this the design of this stuff that you're showing us here. I gotta say, I'm actually impressed. Good job.
Oh, I thank you. I appreciate it. I
Um,
don't claim to be a designer, and I'm not really that good, but I've spent enough time to kind of get the basics down and create something that looks decent most of
yeah,
the
and
time.
you can hand this off to somebody too. They
Yeah,
would get a good sense of what you're looking for.
exactly.
Good job. Good job, Greggy. Great designs.
Well, I hope that I helped you fill 15 minutes for your LinkedIn Live quota and
You
content creation mission, and hopefully it provided some value to your followers and listeners.
I think it did. It actually provided me with value, believe it or not. And I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me on
Yes, of
this
course.
LinkedIn Live starting at 4:50 p.m. Eastern Time, ending right around 5:05. Looking forward to hitting this traffic on 41.
Should
And
be great.
yeah, should be a nice time. All right. Thanks for doing this.
All right. Enjoy your
Bye,
weekend.
everyone.